Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week 3 and module 3, where we talk about narratives and implied meaning. Okay, so I'm going to click on the week 3 Monday memo that posted Monday, yesterday. Okay, and I want to go over just a few items for you that are in this Monday memo. I hope that everyone is reading them, and if you have any questions, so please let me know. I want to make sure that everyone knows to look at all the guidelines and the rubric for each of your writing assignments before you submit it. Okay, so in the module list, underneath the heading module resources, the first two things under that heading is the assignment sheet or your assignment guidelines for the writing, and then the rubric that I use to grade that writing. Okay. A big miss for many last week was for module 2, you were asked to write 2 paragraphs, and some only turned in 1. You only wrote 1 paragraph. You kind of mixed the summary and maybe a response, or maybe you just responded like you did for module 1, or maybe just wrote a summary and forgot to respond. But the writing assignment and the rubric and my video where I talk about it, 2 paragraphs. So make sure that when you write your work and you're writing and doing your assignments, double check the assignment sheet, double check the guidelines, go over the rubric to make sure that you're meeting the guidelines as they're stated. And then if you have any questions, just let me know, okay? So make sure that you are checking all of these things. You have all week to submit your work. You have all the way until Sunday for this module as well before you submit your writing assignment. So please take all that time to make sure that you're doing what is supposed to be done, okay? I also have noticed that there are quite a few who have not done any inquisitive activities, okay? So I know inquisitives are not due until the end of the term, until August 4th. And that's a long way away. That's like 2 months away. And so we just, if you've got bigger things going on, you just kind of push that to the back. But while Canvas will automatically assign a 0 if you miss a writing assignment, it immediately will assign a 0 to it. But since the inquisitives aren't due until August 4th, it's not assigning zeros to them. So if you're missing all of them, just imagine if all of those were zeros right now, your grade would not be great. Okay, so, and I just say that because I've just seen it happen. And I know a lot of students probably think, well, this isn't going to happen to me because I'm going to do it at this day or on this time, or, but just know on August 4th, well, I guess August 5th, all of those undone inquisitives are going to turn into zeros. And you might think you have 1 grade, and then when you miss the inquisitives, you have a different grade. So please, please make sure that you're keeping up with them. I know this is only the 3rd week, but we've already had 5 assigned, and this week you have 2 more. Okay, so that's 7 that have been assigned. So we're about almost halfway through our assigned inquisitives with this week, because we only do 15. So just please make sure that you're keeping up with them. At least click into it to make sure that you can access it, and that there are no issues. Because again, if you wait until the last minute and then there are issues and we aren't able to get the tech support or anything done before they're due, that's still going to be a missed assignment because we've had all summer to do them. So please, please at least click in and make sure you can see it. Complete at least one of the activities to make sure you understand how to do it. There are just quite a few who are kind of pushing those activities to the side. And I just don't want you to get so far behind that it's hard to catch up. Okay? All right. So moving on to Module 3. Module 3 is a narrative essay. Okay? So you're going to be writing a story. And I want to be clear about a few things with this writing assignment. So I'm going to get out of our announcement and I'm going to go into our modules and go to Module 3. You notice that because I have everything else collapsed, it immediately took me straight to the module that I had expanded. So just a tip if you want to do that. Excuse me. Here under the module resources heading is the assignment guideline and rubric. Okay, so I'm going to click on the assignment guideline and here it is here, or you can see it in the Canvas window or you can download it. Okay, I'm just going to look at it here. All right. For this assignment, you are asked to write a multi-paragraph essay, and you'll notice up here at least 3 paragraphs. You could do more, but at least 3, okay, about a moment that changed everything. So that sounds pretty monumental, okay? A moment that changed everything. But it really should be, it must be a personal narrative, something that happened that changed your perspective in some way about something, okay? It means your narrative should clearly explain the moment, the event, and how you changed or how your perspectives changed as a result, okay? And so you want to do this with vivid detail and, you know, tell a story. So that's what this writing is focused on. This can be as personal as you want it to be. I'm the only one that's going to be reading these, so we're not going to share them with the group or, you know, talk about them in a discussion board or anything this week. So this is something completely personal to you, but just make sure that it's at least 3 paragraphs in length. And we'll talk about it in a minute, but I've kind of laid out what your 3 paragraphs need to be. Okay, so going back to what I said before, don't submit 2 paragraphs, don't submit 1. 3 distinct, well-developed paragraphs is what's required here, okay? Now, what can I write about? What are some examples? You can write about your first job, your first paycheck, any important relationship, the start of that relationship, the end of that relationship, how that relationship is ongoing and has changed your life, moving maybe out of your childhood home or moving cities or states or countries. Those are different moments that change everything. Maybe the first time, you know, maybe when you bought your first car or you signed your first lease or bought your first house or something like that. Got your first puppy or kitty or something like that. So anything that meant something to you and changed your perspective on something in your life. That's what you want to write about, okay? So it can be serious, it can be funny, it can be somewhere in between. This doesn't have to be like reintroducing or reviewing past trauma in your life. It doesn't have to be something like that. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. Okay, you can write a story and then kind of give your perspective on how your perspective changed or what you learned from any story. So here's an example. So the first paragraph needs to basically set the scene for your story. Like, where are you? Like city, country, place. You know, is it school? Is it church? Is it a museum? Is it the mall? Is it an amusement park? Is it the library? You know, where are you? How old are you? did this happen last week, or was this like 10 years ago, or, something like, so give us an idea, set the scene for where you are, what's going on that leads up to the moment, what happened. Okay, and then your second paragraph, and I will say your second paragraph or more, if you want to make it bigger, you can have 3 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs, 6. You can have as many paragraphs for here as you want. But if you're just doing the 3, your second paragraph is the story. What happened? What is the event? And give details about it, okay? Then your final paragraph, the last paragraph, however many paragraphs you have to tell your story, the last paragraph is going to be what was the lesson learned, or how did your perspective change, or why was this particular moment important for you. That's what your last paragraph is going to do. Okay, so again, at least 3 paragraphs, but you can write as much as you want. And try to be detailed and give some, ideas of like where you are. Think of your 5 senses. What do you see? What do you hear? Do you taste anything? Do you smell anything? Those kinds of things. Or what can you touch in the area? Kind of think of your 5 senses when you're trying to explain where you are in the event that took place. Okay? So that is your Module 3 writing. All right. And so remember that a well-developed paragraph is 5 to 7 sentences. So remember, you've got an opening sentence, your topic sentence that kind of gives the idea of what the paragraph is going to be about. You have your supporting sentences with your supporting details and examples, and then you have a concluding sentence. And in some cases, that last sentence of your paragraph is going to transition you into the next paragraph, especially if you tell your story in more than just one paragraph, okay? So, story, a narrative, that's what I want you to write. Now, I'm going to go back into the module itself, and I want to point out this story, The 4th of July by Audre Lorde. Now, this story, let me back up. In modules 1 and 2, you read the article and then you wrote about the article. That's what we did. So in module 1, we read the penny debate and you had to write a response to that. Keep the penny or get rid of it. Your choice. In module 2, you read Rice for Thanksgiving and you needed to summarize Fong's personal essay, and then you wrote a response to it and tried to relate to it. So starting with module 3, you are not writing about Audre Lorde's experience. This is a personal narrative. Okay, so this is an example of what you could write. I've had some students make some mistakes because of the way we responded to the previous readings in past modules. They think, oh, I need to write about Audre Lorde's experience on the 4th of July. No, you write a personal essay, a personal experience, something that's happened to you. We are reading this story as an example. This is a narrative by Audre Lorde, so this is an example. It's longer than narrative than what you have to write. You don't have to write one this long, but it's an example, okay? I've also had some students make the mistake before where they think they have to write about a past 4th of July. You don't have to write about the 4th of July. You can if something happened on the 4th of July that was, a big moment for you, sure. But this was a big moment for Audre Lorde, so she wrote about the 4th of July. You don't have to write about the 4th of July, okay? And a third thing, this is not a creative writing class, and this is not a creative writing assignment, meaning I don't want you to make up a story like a fantasy or a romance or, some other kind of fiction story. This needs to be a real event, personal, that happened to you, okay? And so the only reason why I'm saying all of those things is because I've gotten essays that were all of those things, because students misinterpreted what they were supposed to do because of what we've done in other modules. Okay, so from this module on, the reading that we do is going to provide information. It's going to be informative. It's going to be by way of examples, and you are not going to write directly about that article. You're going to come up with your own ideas. Okay, so we're not going to be writing summary responses anymore. You're going to come up with your own ideas, and you can use the articles that we read now as examples and for information. Okay, so with all that in mind, I would suggest that you read this by Audre Lorde, and I do want to point something out. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. This is a picture of Audre Lorde, and all of this information, this stuff here, this paragraph here gives you information specifically about the author. And then this talks about this piece, the 4th of July. Okay, so this is a great place to start. I know it's at the end of the article, but before you read something, anything, it's good to know, where is it coming from? What is it about? So it's good to know that Audre Lorde was born in New York City in 1934, and her parents were immigrants from the Caribbean. It's good to know that she was raised in Harlem. It's good to know that she got her master's degree at Columbia University, and she was the poet laureate for New York State 91 and 92. She passed away in 92 at 58, so she was pretty young. And so we know a little bit about her now, and now we can read a little bit about the 4th of July. This was set in the late 1950s in Washington, D.C. Okay, and there are themes of coming of age, because in this particular story, she's 14. So she's telling this story from the perspective of a 14-year-old. And she's just gotten out of 8th grade, okay? And there are themes of racism and coming of age, and she kind of talks about how her innocence is lost and how she sees the world more clearly now since this event on the 4th of July. Okay, so now that you know some of that, that gives you good context. It's a fancy word called rhetorical situation. It gives you an idea of how this story is set, who Audre Lorde is, what perspective and life experience she's coming from writing this story. Okay, so rhetorical situation, context is so important. You can't take a writing out of context. You've got to know the social, the political, the economic climate of what's happening and when this story was written and by whom. Okay, so all of that stuff is super important. So anytime you start reading anything, it's really good to just check, does this have an author section where I can get little blurbs about the author or about what influenced them to write this particular piece? All of that will give you kind of context in your brain and let you know, okay, this is the perspective that these things, this story is coming from, okay? And then you can scroll all the way back up and you can start reading the 4th of July, okay? So I'm going to go back into the modules. So the assignment guidelines and the rubric. We also have some narrative writing tips here that you can go over, just some ways to make your narrative writing a little better, a little more put together. There's a video about implied main ideas for you to watch. We also have some grammar stuff, so English fundamental stuff. And in fact, I think I might just move that down here because that makes more sense. We'll put all the writing stuff together. So the assignment guidelines, the rubric, some writing tips, a video about that. And speaking of videos, I actually have 2 videos of Audre Lorde here as well. If you want to give those a look, those can also give you some context for her story. So we're going to you're going to read a little bit about English fundamentals and 4 sentence types. Those are important things to know, how to vary your sentence structure and sentence length in your writing. And then these things are important. MLA document setup. So I'm going to go back into the assignment guidelines and point out this last important part here. Your essay needs to be submitted in MLA format. Okay, so we're going to talk all about MLA format and what that is in a separate video that's going to post after this one, because I want a whole video for that one, or this video is going to be too long. But from here on out, everything needs to be submitted in MLA format. Okay, so be on the lookout for that next video explaining that. Okay, so we have, as I said, we have 3 assignments. You have 2 inquisitives, and then you have your narrative essay. All these 2 are due on August 4th, as you can see here. August 8th is Sunday, which is when your narrative writing is due. But please take your time. Remember, top-down approach to your work. Okay, review, read, watch, read, watch, read, review, look at the document setup video that's getting ready to come out, do your inquisitives, then start working on this, okay? Because all of this stuff helps you to create the best narrative that you can, all right? And if you have any questions or concerns as you're working on your things for this week, please let me know. I am here to help, and I hope you have a good week.